Hey, it's Benji Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio and host of the syndicated talk show, People of Distinction. The talk that gives you an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. Run to our website, alcoleenterprises.com for more info. Email me at benji@alcoleenterprises.com if you'd like to get involved with what we have going. And as always, please continue to like and follow our broadcast because People of Distinction is a nationally and internationally syndicated show because of listeners like you. Our shows are available across all major podcast distributors as well as YouTube. And if you keep following, we're going to continue to put out the content. We appreciate the support. Continue to like and follow and sit back and strap in because on the line with us today, we have the impressive Carolyn Hughes-Bronson as well as Judith Weston. And we're going to be discussing their amazing book, Diverse Dialogues, a collection of 10-minute plays. Now, you're going to want to head on over to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, all the regular online book resellers. I mean it. Simply type their names in this title into a Google search bar, and you're going to be greeted with a whole host of places where it's available. Now, in addition to this, I also want to plug a couple of things that you're going to want to get involved in as well. Well, Judy has written another book, and that one is called #Fishing Like a Girl. And make sure it's the hashtag symbol. Don't spell it out. Don't be like me and put that there. #Fishing Like a Girl. You're going to want to check it out. But also, Carolyn is a blues artist. So she has contemporary blues albums available across all music platforms. You can find her by searching CC Bronson. So check it all out. There is so much here for you. But we're going to have our hands filled with Diverse Dialogues. That's where it all begins, okay? And before we go any further, I want to take this opportunity and point out the fact that each of them were brought to our network by one of the best publishing firms in the business. People you already know, I'm talking about Author Reputation Press. So if you're a writer out there, you've gone through your process creating your masterpiece, and now you need some help moving the book you just developed. Well, contact ARP because this is exactly what they specialize in. You're going to want to head on over to authorreputationpress.com and gather all the ways that their fantastic team is going to help you do just that. And listen, it is an absolute pleasure to have Carolyn and Judy here on the line. People, right there, in the title, Diverse Dialogues, that covers a lot, right? Because first and foremost, can I just put this out there? When did we as a country, as a society, as a community stop talking to one another? When did we stop conversing? Because it feels like for people that think differently, right, there is no more diverse conversations, right? It's all the same thing, it appears. Well, not here, all right? Through People of Distinction, we're going to keep that conversation going. And with this book filled with a collection of these short plays, it's meant to do just that. Believe me when I tell you, these plays, it's not just a collection of scripts, although it may appear that way on the foundation. But once you start to realize, once you start to read it, you understand that this is actually a catalyst for change. This is going to explore the diversity not only in theater but beyond, diversity amongst our communities. It's going to showcase people of different backgrounds, different cultures, in hopes of promoting unity, in hopes of making sure that each and every one of us feel heard. And that is something that I thought, growing up, I felt like that was the bare minimum, right? Being able to articulate your perspective and feel as if you were heard, at least in my household. And believe me, there was a lot of us, man. I'm the youngest of 6, all boys, and there were a lot of voices to be heard. But one thing that my parents did an amazing job with was making sure that we all felt that way. Now, whether or not it actually was, that's a different story. But at least we felt as if we were heard. I think we've gotten to a point in society now where it almost feels like the only places where you can go to experience that diversity will be a place like the theater, will be a place like a comedy club or something. Really, it's coming from artists, which as an artist myself, I love it. But also from a macro perspective, people, there's some reassessing that we need to do here. This book is the precipice, but by no means is it the end. It's going to start you on your journey. but it's up to each and every one of you to continue it. So listen, without further ado, because I could sit here, I'm very verbose, I could talk all day, you know it. I'm going to now pass it to Carolyn and to Judy. Let's welcome them here to the network. First and foremost, for each of you, welcome to People of Distinction. Thank you very much for being guests. How are you today?
Doing fine, yes. And I want to say it's a good thing that you talk. You're the talker because I'm a real good listener. And I think in this world, being a great listener, I seek people out that love to talk. And it just gravitates towards me. And first, also, I want to say hello to all the listeners. I might not see your face, but I feel you, okay? I hear you. I know you. I want to know you better. So this is where this book comes in. And if we as people and individuals can just start our day with, how can I make this world a better place? I mean, what can I do? And as artists, we have that ability.
Yeah.
And I just think it's so exciting to know that. And I just want to encourage everyone, even though you might not have a crayon in your hand or you have a background that says you're an artist or someone who can make a difference, I say, no, you can. Okay, you can. It's in your heart. So that said, I'm going to let Cece elaborate on that.
Well, I wasn't going to elaborate. I was just going to say what she said. You said it all.
That's it. It couldn't be put any better, Judy. Thank you very much for sharing that. And like I said, welcome both of you to the network. I am thoroughly looking forward to this discussion, as I know my listening audience is as well. What you've comprised here is something special and something to really build off of. And I think that's key here. First and foremost, let's start at that beginning. I mean, what was the motivation behind writing a book of 10-minute plays?
Well, on this one, I'm going to go first. Anyway, from my perspective, I'm also an actress, and I've been acting in 10-minute plays for several years now. And actually, I invited Judy to some of the plays that I was in, and she got all excited and said, hey, we should be doing a book. I said, well, okay, let's go. And that's what we did. That's the motivation was, actually Judy was my motivation, I should say. Although I love 10-minute plays because it's such a challenge to be able to encapsulate someone's story in 10 minutes and just in such few words.
Yeah.
And actually have a conclusion. It's such a challenge, and it's beautiful. I love it.
Well, to expand on that thought, I actually spent most of my entire life being a silent observer. And to be able to talk like this is a little unusual for me. And let me briefly explain. I am a photojournalist, and once a photojournalist, always a photojournalist. But I spent a lifetime seeing the best and the not so good part of humanity. And I've had a front row seat to life as it unfolds in its real time. So to be able to harness these memories, to be able to find a new way and pivot to tell the story is enlightening for me in a way that during my profession, my career, I didn't have a choice as to how that story is going to end, sadly. And many times, and you look at that story, how it's unfolding, and the chaos and the sorrow or the joy or the triumph, you, as a silent observer, an objective observer, I do not insert myself. So the camera is like a shield. I'm trying to tell people this is what's happening. You see, if there's a bad storm, we go in the storm, okay? This is where you have to tell the story. You can't tell it from some office or whatever, you grab your gear and go. So to be able to have the opportunity to tell stories and be able to navigate an ending that makes sense and feels hopeful is something that I gravitated to immediately. And that's because of Cece. And I was not a theater goer for a really long time because why? Is that a part for me? Can I fit in there? Yeah. It just seemed out of touch. But now that I'm in there, I'm learning the ropes. I'm a newbie, but I've learned quite a lot about 10-minute plays. And I really found out that the person, Pierre Loving, in 1923, he happens to be also a journalist who put out a book of 10-minute plays. I'm like, wow, here's a connection for me, a journalist. Because sometimes people get caught up in that cred. Let's see the credentials you have. It's like, well, life's my credential. I respect education, but there are those anomalies that break through that.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Thank you each for going there. And listen, my follow-up that I want to go into now, and I'm sure each of you are going to have your own particular expression for this. Judy, as you mentioned, being a silent observer, right? Utilizing the camera as a shield. I think there's so much there. My background is, of course, not in photography, but as a filmmaker, that is something that I've experienced, right? I'm not always in front of the camera, being behind and just trying to capture the moment. There is something about the purity and how that can translate that I think is beautiful and groundbreaking in a lot of ways. But when we talk about just the title itself and what that all encapsulates, diverse dialogues, I love that because there is a specific vision, an image that comes across with it. Well, Carolyn, shed some light on the monumental challenge that you faced, as well as Judy now being a part of the process of capturing the voices of so many people that generally are unheard from varying communities and doing it in such a short snapshot as a 10-minute play. Talk to us about that process, the challenge of tackling that.
Well, I just had to draw from the many friends that I have that come from many cultural backgrounds, as well as my own family. My family is so multicultural, we look like a Benetton commercial. And true. And that's what I drew from, honestly. Yeah. It was from the people around me. So I'm one of those people, curious about life, curious about different cultures and what have you. And through my travels as well, I have a lot of friends, and they've shared with me things with me, and somehow I was able to help encapsulate it in a 10-minute play.
Follow up that because we're all pre-recorded, we can always just stop here. Judy, is there anything you would like to add to that before I move on?
I do. I mean, I always tell my friends, if I were a dog, I'd be a Malinois, okay? I have to stay busy. I'm to the point. I'm focused. I'm there. It's laser focused because I've learned that through all my travels as a journalist. You got to be on your A game, especially when I first started out. There weren't very many women photojournalists. So, I was an anomaly. And frankly, I didn't think of myself as a female, male, or anything. I was like a nothing, okay? I had that camera. But I think the 10-minute play is the perfect format for me personally because, I always say if I sit any longer, I'm going to get bored clot. Okay. So I like to the point. You can build a story quickly. And especially when I'm pretty much trained to try and talk to an editor fast and give her or him the details in a concise manner. Boom, 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 boom. So this was actually very exciting for me to be able to turn that onto the pages in a play format. So that's exciting for me, and it's working out. And so this is good. We can tell a story in 10 minutes that's going to make your heart pop open. I guarantee it.
And I just wanted to add real quickly that the fact that we both were coming from different places, we were able to write this book. That's what made it all work.
Well, listen, I think there's so much. Just in that, right? Coming from different places and being able to unite to create this fantastic piece of literature, I think is something that is a great message in and of itself. People, again, the book is so appropriately titled Diverse Dialogues, a collection of 10-minute plays. You got to head on over to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and a whole host of other places. You pick up copies of this amazing book. Because here's the thing, even if you're not, let's say you're not a theater person, right? You're not an actor. You're like, Benji, I don't really care about that stuff. I'm not an artist in that way. There is so much benefit in the words on those pages because it's going to open your eyes and shift things. It's going to allow you to see from other perspectives. So even if theater is not your thing, just reading the book, reading the words on the pages, allowing yourself to use the old cliche here, to walk in someone else's shoes for a minute or 10 minutes is going to do so much for you. People, I'm telling you, you got Carolyn Hughes-Bronson and Judith Weston to thank for all of it. But remember, this book is not all. All right. They also got another book. Judy has written #Fishing Like a Girl. And also, you got Carolyn goes under CC Bronson with her contemporary blues albums. Pick them all up. Get lost in it. I'm telling you, they're artists through and through. And this is something you want to be a part of. As we continue this discussion here, ladies, I'm curious to know, in a world that seems like, again, the discussions have ceased to ensue amongst diverse populations, how did you balance entertainment with education in your plays to engage the audiences while also encouraging that thoughtful reflection?
Wow. I guess for me, I'd have to say, from being in the theater for a bit, and just acting, period. And I'm just a writer at heart because I also write screenplays as well. And I always want to tell stories that nobody else is telling. So that in itself was a motivation for me, was just getting those stories out that you just don't normally hear about. It's easy to just follow what everybody else is doing, but to me that's boring. And that's not the real world. So that was the motivation for me.
Okay. I have to, I thought about what you just asked, and I got hung up on the word entertainment because that doesn't necessarily cross my mind when I think about myself personally as I'm going through those doors into the darkness, waiting for those footlights to be snatched up and turned on and waiting for it to happen. I think I approach it a little differently. I want to feel and absorb something new and exciting. I guess you can say that as entertainment, but also, what is the message here? Is there something that is trying to talk to me? So I don't know. I rarely read reviews about a movie. I want to just go and let that movie tell me what it's about instead of. They're important in that. And, I went on a long time ago, my first trip to Haiti, my friend said, well, did you read up on Haiti? I'm like, what? Why? I'm going to step outside and let Haiti talk to me. So that's how I approach it. But I realize people go for entertainment, and there are plays that really do entertain, but there are also those kind that make you really think, like on a different level.
Absolutely. Listen, I'm right there with you, Judy. Like I get it, right? I think entertainment has to be a part, or not has to be, but I think entertainment should be a part of things because it allows it to be a more easygoing experience. But coupling that with the education, I think now you got a winning formula. And whatever that translates to you, and that's the beauty of art, right? Is it's open to that interpretation. No one's saying one thing or the other. And Carolyn, a really powerful thing that you mentioned a moment ago is you like to, and I'm going to paraphrase because I don't remember the exact wording, but it was something along the lines of you like to tell the stories that aren't being told, right? Stories that aren't being heard. And listen, people, I'm not going to – I don't run a political podcast here, so I'm not going to make it political. But I do think that I have to take the opportunity to address something that when we talk about voices that aren't being heard and how things can just get swept up that way, it brings me to very key points that have happened in the past number of years. And Unfortunately, it's revolving around so much of the division that we have here. And one thing that I felt very keenly, and again, we're not going to go into the specifics and the nuances because I do value interpretation. So for those out there that believe differently, I respect it. It's not a problem. But let's just talk about just the catchphrase that has gotten demonized in years of the movement Black Lives Matter. And when you're talking about that and how that it was interpreted by a large portion of the community, and then there was, kind of a backlash, and then the response to it was all lives matter, as if when we said Black Lives Matter, we were saying other lives meant any less. Because, of course, that's not the case. And as a Black man that was raised in this country and has faced my fair share of racism and prejudice, I look at that, and that is one of those things, and how I interpret what you were saying in terms of voices not being heard, stories not being told. I hear that particular movement, and I see the backlash to it, and I'm like, whoa, hold on. We're completely missing the point. The emphasis of that movement and how I interpreted it, and how I know so many people in my circle also interpreted it is, again, Black lives don't mean any more than any other lives. It's simply that we feel we're not being recognized. And I think that there's been a lot of examples of, an argument that can prove that we haven't been recognized, that we're still, in a sense, being viewed as, less of a person. And again, that runs deep. We don't need to dive down that rabbit hole, although I would love to. I'm going to keep it honed in here, people. But you get what I'm saying, and I think that this is such an important aspect of this book, is the fact that it showcases such diversity that we see in our lives and oftentimes go unrecognized. Ladies, I could sit here, I could talk to you for hours. I really do mean that. This is something special. It's something powerful. This, I believe, is so much deeper than a work of literature, right? I mean, of course, that it is. But this I look at and I see as a potential movement that can really spark some change. As I mentioned at the beginning, I look at this as a catalyst for change. Well, I want to ask something, because as an artist here, I know it can be kind of difficult, but I'm going to pin y'all against each other for a second here. This is a collection of plays. Is there one that you would say for each of you that sticks out, that it's like, I mean, they're all great, but this one here, Benji, let me tell you, this one here is my favorite. What would that be?
Oh, wow. I have a couple, but...
Oh, no, Carolyn, you can't do that. We got to just do one here. That's the point.
Okay. Well, actually, it's Recycled Souls. That's my favorite, because it's not even about anyone's particular culture or race. It's about, going up to yonder of the great, some people say heaven, some people say whatever, but and having a chance to come back to the planet and do better, be a better person, have a better life.
Love that.
So that one is one of my favorites.
Love that.
So
Judy,
what about you, Judy?
You're up to bat.
Where am I next on this? My favorite, well, that's it depends on what flavor I'm looking for. Okay, it's like standing at the ice cream place, like, oh, I don't know. Do I want Superman? Do I want chocolate? Do I want Rocky Road? Oh, they're all delicious. What am I going to do? So I ended up taking samples of everything, and they're like, okay, what are you going to buy? Well, anyway, I really would have to say that a couple of them stand out for me in various ways, but one is called Getting Our Disorder in Order, and it delves into bipolar and the struggles that happen between the couple happens to be a same-sex couple, which just happened. It's like these things just come to your mind and heart. It wasn't our intention to make it a same-sex couple. It just happened that way, and it was so exciting to watch the characters. They developed themselves as we were sitting there discussing things, And that's a process that I was really shocked to happen. I don't know if that happens with other playwrights, but the characters in this particular one just evolved. Yeah. And the message is loud and clear, and I don't want to give it away because I want everyone to read it and come away with what they need to come away with. But I assure you, it helps people understand this illness. I mean, which is constantly under scrutiny. And so that was a great opportunity to talk about that. And then lastly, there's a play called The Letter. And it talks about a real incident that happened in our world that a lot of people are not aware of. If you're not aware of it, you're not aware of it. But it's, what happened in World War II, it's the deadliest stateside disaster of World War II happened. And it was an accidental explosion on July 17th, 1944 at Port Chicago, California. So you people might not know this history, but it was a catalyst for change in our military. And without going on and on and on about that would give your listeners something to, but it addresses this in a fictional way. Mm-hmm. And it's about a mother and a sister coping with the loss of their loved one. And over 300 African-American sailors lost their lives that day. Mm. And despite the impact that these Port Chicago 50 had in our armed forces, the Naval Magazine Memorial is one of the least visited sites in the National Park Service system. So that was a little jarring for me to read. At the time, actually, It was the least visited. So I'm like, okay, why? It's because people not intentionally don't know. They just don't know. So through this play, through this emotion of this mother and sister, they're going to learn something, and I know that people will reflect and want to know more about these men, these brave men.
Listen, I knew that question was going to be challenging because, like, as I said, as an artist myself, man, these are like your children, right? You've created them, you've given birth to them. So how do you choose just one? I get it, right? Background myself, I love Shakespeare. I've performed so many, but then it's like, okay, well, would it be one of my Shakespeare productions that I've done? August Wilson, Susan Laurie Parks. I mean, there's so much. There's so many. I get it. Well, that's why we were stirring the pot there a little bit, but each of you passed with flying colors. Congratulations. That is wonderful. Listen, as we close out of here, my only other question, we've talked not only about this book, we've talked about, Carolyn, your musical albums. We talked about the other book, or at least mentioned each of them. But let's take an opportunity here. What other endeavors do you have besides this particular book that has been created?
Well, for myself, I've started to dig in, or I should say dive into short films, and taking my writing to writing short scripts, and actually I just executive produced a film, and the subject is around suicide. Wow. And that's another thing that I want to do. I want to keep producing short films that say something. Mm-hmm. I mean, entertainment is great, and they are entertaining as well. But I really want to say something rather than it just be there's a boy, there's a girl, and there's a car crash.
Exactly. Yeah, it has something with some substance. I love that.
Yes, definitely. And Judy?
Okay, on the top of Black Lives Matter, this is a perfect example of a play waiting to happen. I mean, because unfortunately there's a segment of our society that doesn't have a very positive attitude towards the movement. Mm-hmm. And I hear it, I see it. And so this is where Cece and I could definitely create a play fashioned from this movement and present it in a non-confrontational way. So without, of course, losing its importance, and allow people to hear the voice and maybe learn something, from both sides. Yeah. And it's so important that happens. And so this is what the premise of our book is. You'd be amazed at the voices you're going to hear. And which brings me to another aspect of this book. The actors, we decided in our plays, are ethnic specific. Well, for instance, a woman who is biracial is trying to land the lead role of Rosa Parks, and she encounters an unexpected roadblock. And I'm not going to give it away, but it enlightened me as Cece and I, as we were writing it. We're both looking at each other like, okay. So and so that's one example, and this one other example that comes to mind very quickly is a Japanese young woman, a woman. She is grappling with her identity because her biological parents weren't able to, and she was adopted and came to America. And so what happens during this play, it's going to make you cry and laugh at the same time. So, and also when you're creating ethnic-specific roles for actors, it might, put that little beat, and the directors or the theater troupe management, and give them pause to look around at their own group of actors that are there. I mean, maybe they can ask themselves questions like, okay, wait a minute. It's just food for thought. And another thing is a lot of these, I mean, you can interject, the non-minority or, we don't want to be like this, but in certain plays, it's going to be required. So that in itself could be a great challenge for some theaters out there. And lastly, I endeavor to be a catalyst for change. And with Cece and our book, Diverse Dialogues, I think that's a great place to start.
People, listen, there's so much to be taken from this discussion that we've had here today. If you take nothing else from today's interview, you can scrap everything else. I mean, obviously don't do that, but push everything else away. The most important part of this is dialogue. People, we got to get back to talking. We got to get back to speaking to one another. And I'm not saying speaking at one another, because I think that's what we've been doing a lot of times, is just at each other. And, listen, as a married man myself with two beautiful children, I look at it and I'm like, if we could just think about how do we have a successful relationship with our significant others? Well, a lot of times it comes down to effective communication, right? Well, let that seep into every other aspect, every other relationship, even if it's a relationship with someone you just met 10 minutes ago at the beginning of that 10-minute play. Anyways, I wasn't trying to be a pun there, but it just happened. People, I'm saying, seriously, joking aside, though, let's get back to talking to one another. Let's start to hear one another. Let's listen, and let's inspire change for tomorrow, because my children, they're depending on us, and I know yours are as well. You know where to go. Pick up your copies. Get lost in this. Carolyn, Judy, this has been an absolute honor. Thank you for this wonderful information that you've relayed. Thank you for showcasing this amazing book. And thank you for being a guest on People of Distinction.
Thank you, Benji. Thank you.